the seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, here we go. The Sunday Blether. It's been a while since I've done one of these. As you can tell, my voice is still a bit fucked for last weekend. I don't know if I'll ever recover. I am joined by Regan Stevenson. It is his Sunday Blether. It always will be, really. And Mark Kearney. What's happening, lads? How we doing?
I'm doing well, Russell. I know last week I was in Clydesdale House. Well, this week I could be thrown out, but I think the VAR, Russell, was Graham Souness. I mean, how you can say that the Celtic have been lucky with VAR is unbelievable. I mean, that's my last thing about Clydesdale House. I think I've been bad for that place after last week, yeah. But, I mean, I was...
You want to take Graham Souness to VAR, Regan?
Yeah, I do, but I want to say, I think that Clydesdale House must have smashed the windows last night after Jackie Mack's penalty. Man must have smashed the windows. That was a shocking penalty, Russell. I mean...
Is that where the ball landed, Regan?
I think it was. I mean, he probably listened to the Sunday Blether and went, the Sunday Blether's starting about 4 hours' time, so I better get my smash those windows in before they start.
Another explosive start for Regan. Judge Kearney's with us. How are you, big man?
I'm doing very well, mate. I'm surrounded by anti-Celtic pizza shops, and I'm surrounded by bar haters. I mean, that Graham Souness, you know, I don't think I'll talk about it, mate, but some of his comments, I agree. I would take him to Mars and just drop him off there and leave him. I mean, what fucking planet is he actually on if he thinks VAR's went in Celtic's favour? I couldn't believe what I was reading the other one. I thought it was a parody, but saying that newspaper is a parody of itself, isn't it? So, how are you, boys? How's things with you, mate?
Aye, jamming, man. Jamming. We did a bus stop last night, but like, we were having a few technical issues, right? And then I got a wee bit lively with a couple of bevies and that, do you know what I mean? Then it all started working, and Phil thought it'd be a good idea just to do the bus stop anyway. So we recorded it, but I'm going to watch it back today sober and decide if we go with it or not, because there's a couple of funny put downs, I would call them, but maybe on reflection.
Did you say you're going to watch it back sober?
Aye.
What part of the day is that going to be? It's a weekend.
I've got an hour, mate. I've got an hour before. I've got an hour window after this, and then that'll be it. Aye, you're right. You are right. Soon has been mentioned already. Danny O'Malley comes in. The more soon as talks, the more brain cells I lose, and I don't have many. Well, I'll be honest. I think he's. I just don't think he's. I don't think he watches Scottish football. I think he just says things for sound bites to make sure. I mean, he's on Sky, he's on TalkSport, he's got columns in 2 different newspapers, I think. So he's got to stay relevant to get that, and that therefore you play to your gallery. Everyone knows he's a Liverpool fan, so he plays to that gallery, and he'll slag off Paul Pogba. When it comes to matters Scotland, he'll say Celtic get favourable decisions and folk will lap up. He doesn't have a clue. He doesn't watch Scottish football. It's not like he's even saying it from any. It's not because he thinks it. He's just saying stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like Talking Heads had the lyric, "You're talking a lot, but you're not saying anything." But anyway, David Lowe, yes, an exclusive before we get stuck in, lads. He says, I'm the captain now. Look at me, look at me. David is going to be taking up the reins of the Sunday Blether. We needed someone sober, as Mark was alluding to there, to take the reins on a Sunday. Regan, you're going to still be on as many Sundays as you can, aren't you?
I'm still going to be on, Russell. I mean,
Love it.
I might be at Clydesdale House, I might be at the Sydney Cup, but I'll definitely be here, Russell.
Love it, mate. And Mark, we can count on you on a Sunday as and when available. I know work gets in the way and all that, but it'll be good to have someone, a steady pair of hands hosting it. And I think he's got a few wee tweaks he's going to be doing as well with the show. Take the Sunday Blether to that next level. It'll be good. Looking forward to all that. And I suppose we better do all that good stuff. So now I just seen Phil McGinley's name pop up in the chat. That reminds me. Do hit the subscribe button if you've not already. 3,053 have. So we must be doing something right in 11 months. Not bad for a joke of a podcast. And then obviously we've got to keep the comments lively. We've got to keep the chat going because that gives us talking points half the time. If you've not become a Bhoycie Bus member yet, don't worry. The content will always be free. It's simply up to you if you want to support the channel that way. Cost of living and stuff. I know, but it's probably the best value for money out there. But anyway, also, what's the other one you can do? Share it if you want to share it. I'm shy all this stuff. Anyway, we'll talk about the Sydney Cup because that is fresh in the memory. There was a game at 3:45. I take it. Did you stay up for it, Regan? Did you say?
I did, Russell. Well, I tried to get a bit of sleep and then I woke myself up. But yeah, I mean, I thought Celtic played well. It was typical Celtic versus Marin or something. It was Celtic totally dominated the game, and then Everton tried to come back into it. And I think Nathan Patterson thought he'd won the World Cup when he scored that penalty against Celtic at Russell. But yeah, I mean, it was just. I thought Celtic played well. Russell did a few chances. Jota, Matt O'Reilly had a chance as well. I mean, I don't think Everton had a shot on target, Russell, from right in saying it was a bit too early in the morning for me, but I think I'm right in saying that. And
Celtic did what they did in Champions League, just took the game by the scruff. I think Everton are probably in a space right now where they are vulnerable. I think it'd be easy to say. And when you know Celtic only play one way, which Ange will tell you yourself, then they will have known what was coming. And I think Frank Lampard, folk can slag it all they want, but I think he's got to protect himself as well. Because these games are friendlies until there's a really sort of defining scoreline in the Mark. You know what I mean? See if Celtic had got beat 5 or 6-0, or say we'd won 5 or 6-0. We start jumping for joy a wee bit more than being able just to say, it's just a friendly. You know, and I think Frank Lampard was acutely aware of what we bring to the table. And I think it's, fuck that. The last thing I need on top of what's going on right now at my club is going to Australia and getting battled off the Scottish side. You know what I mean? It's the last thing he's needing. So, yes, it's a bit of a doff of the cap to what abilities we bring. But I don't actually criticise Everton all too much for that. They've got their own situations that they need to protect as well. And all managers have, they've got jobs that are always on shaky pegs, Mark. So maybe it was just a bit of protecting that, wasn't there? And we can't finish our dinner anyway. So I've got to worry about.
No, absolutely right. And I think as well, they probably took it as a bit like a training exercise. And I'm pretty sure that they don't want to see a Scottish team beat them. They like to think they're the big brother of football in this country, in Britain anyway. And I think they wouldn't want to see a Scottish team beat them. I know I'm only seeing the stats. I never watched the match, but Russell's fucked off. He's had enough of me. No, I seen the stats and they were quite damning for Everton. But Celtic just can't finish their dinner just now. You know what I mean? We're creating chances. I think Kyogo missed a and I kind of bent me less an open goal, but I've saw a guy miss that exact same chance umpteen times. I actually think he missed that exact same chance against Sydney FC. I think they played the last game there. It was the exact same chance he missed, and he will keep on scoring and missing the chances, but he'll score because he gets himself in good positions. What I did see on Twitter is calls for a third striker. I've been saying that since summer. I think a few in the bus have been saying that, but surprisingly, it's took a friendly match for some folk to realise that. But I think we're needing somebody who's but I think we have got a 1 and 2 chance striker in Giakoumakis, but we're going to need somebody else in there who's going to tuck away these chances more often, because we can't always rely on somebody popping up in the 90th minute, especially with VAR just now. So we've got to this tournament. We haven't had any injuries that I know of. We've banked the cash, and it's off to Portugal, I think, for a wee holiday, for a wee training camp. Then it's a week's holiday, I think, for the players. So that's what I'm taking out of it, mate, to be honest with you.
I think it's the other way around. I think they're having 8 days off.
Oh, then they can't.
Then go to Portugal. I think that's what it is. But either way, I mean, I'm being pedantic. It doesn't really matter. But what I would say about the 1 and 2 striker, you've got a 1 and 2 striker there, yes, but he doesn't get 1 and 2 opportunities. That's the honest truth. He doesn't get, match time, minutes in the park. Yeah. Now, the big concern that we had in the summer from other fans, not from us, when we were touting Jordan Larson, we got quite excited at times, imagining the prospect. Remember the image of the photo we had in our head, Mark? You know, we were like Henrik and Ange flanking Jordan in the middle. You know what I mean? With Larson 7, it just would have been gold. But anyway, the debate that we were getting, the pushback me and yourself were getting, Mark, at the time was, you know, how would a third striker get in our team? How would a third striker get in this Celtic team when we've got two so good? Now, the fact of the matter is he was a bona fide player who could have come in and done bits at Champions League level as well. I'm convinced of that. Now you're in a situation where fans now want a third striker. But again, that'll be after the event of the Champions League, which again, all my thoughts were on was, are you aware that this is a step up in level? We're going to need to see improvements across the first team. Just because they're your heroes doesn't mean they can't be improved. Now, as you rightfully say, it takes a friendly, or it takes a couple of weeks recently for people to the penny to start dropping that clubs need competition to thrive. Just because you've got, you know, even though you're too old to, you've got posters of these players on your walls, you idiots. It doesn't mean that they cannot be challenged for a jersey. Too many people were too protective in the summer. I don't think Postecoglou's made that clear at the AGM. I think he's acutely aware the fans are having almost too much of a love into these guys. You need to be objective. You need to look at this from the prism I am, which is I see Celtic as a sleeping giant of a football club that I've brought in players in under very difficult circumstances initially. Therefore, some of them won't be of the standard long term, I think. But in the meantime, they had to come in because they were availability and we needed numbers. Some have probably exceeded expectation, Mark. But whilst Ange will respect that and love that, you'll not be shying replacing them with better quality. And I think up front, Regan, it was a story of the Champions League again today, wasn't it, pal? You know, the miss from the mystery Kyogo is criminal. As bad as I actually think it's slightly different, albeit the optics looked like it was a worse miss. But either way, both those have to be finished. Have to be. They're on a plate.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing for me, Russell. I mean, if you look at Ange Postecoglou, he's saying that he said in his post-match interview he's still angry about Thursday night, and that just shows you that guy takes no friendly for an example. And I think if you're looking at Ange, he'll just be looking to finish our chances, because I know it's a friendly, and I know we played Sydney, we played Everton, but he'll be looking for take our chances. And I think that would be the big thing for him that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking maybe in the summertime, he'll be looking to go into the market and bring in a proper number 9 that he knows that could put that ball in the pokey.
Because the ball in the pokey, I've not heard that expression in ages.
because when you get chances at Champions League level where Ange wants to go, I think that's the big thing. Celtic are not going to get many chances. We're going to get maybe 3 or 4 chances a game. And then when we get the chances,
Yes.
stuff like that. And as much as I love Kyogo, I don't know if he's Champions League quality at that level. Because you see at Celtic when you're playing Barcelona, you're playing Bayern Munich, they're only going to give you 2 chances. So when you get the 2 chances, you have to take them.
Very, very true. I mean, as I say, Mark, I felt it was a bit of the same old song from Celtic that we've seen in the Champions League. And I think it's so right to mention that from Regan. See the opportunity Kyogo gets, the drive back, he doesn't even make a clean connection. He's in the 6-yard box. And I'm like, I think Regan's so right. It's almost like there's tension in him. You know what I mean? If you're relaxed, you just strike the ball cleanly. Do you know what I mean? And he's struggling to do that even in situations like that. And it tells me, for whatever reason, the Champions League wasn't long ago, but the lessons from it definitely weren't learned. Do you know what I mean? They've not been learned yet. That mental obstacle, whatever it may have been, we spoke about it on Thursday. The mental obstacle, whatever it might be that is preventing these players from finishing like they naturally do domestically, has been evident again in Sydney. And that's a friendly competition. It is strange, but I do think it's food for thought for Ange as well. Because there's no point in being, superheroes in one competition, i.e. a domestic one, and then unable to replicate that in another when presented with the same sort of opportunity, for example. Creating chances cup. That's not that's not a competition, Mark. And whether we win it or not, year on year, it won't actually mean fuck all in the long term. Eventually the chances have to be taken.
That's that. I mean, you can be flat track bullies all you want, but when it comes to the bigger games, the bigger games for Celtic tend to be the qualifiers in Europe and things like that. I mean, in a group stage, you can just kind of tick off each match and build on the experience of it. But see, when you're having to go into qualifiers and you're not entirely sure if you're going to be finishing the chances that you get, if you do get many chances, that can cost you £40 million. I mean, that can cost you the Champions League, and it also can cost you that chance you've got to pull away for your rivals. The money is so important just now because I think Celtic will go according to a figure of like 30 million in the bank. So that needs to be spent, but it would just give you a board an excuse not to spend it if it didn't qualify again. So I think luckily this year the champions go right into the Champions League. So let's see how we build on last season's performances. And I think the good thing about the chances we're missing is, and I'm sure Ange's got the data. I mean, if we've all clocked it, he's clocked it a long time ago. So I'm pretty sure they would say one thing in the press, but it will be a concern to him that we're beating teams 2-1, but we're hammering teams 2-1. It only takes a VAR decision or a penalty against you or an own goal, as we've seen with Juranovic, that can cost you points. And we've noticed this season with Rangers, there was one game where they could have went top of the league before the game started, and they finished today about 5 points behind us. I think, and it just shows you how quick a title race can turn, and it only takes one defeat or one bad result, and the mentality shifts. I mean, you can see a sea change, and I mean, I look at Rangers, and I've not watched much of them at all. I don't really like watching them, but you can see there's no any belief. When you look at them on that part, there's no belief. Whereas it's a polar opposite of Celtic. I see players that just look like they're on the crest of a wave. They all know that the man next to them's got the ability and the belief as well to do what the job of he's been asked to do. And we've got so many players that can step up in the big moments. I mean, even the likes of David Turnbull, I mean, his finish last week was so calm and composed. I mean, he put it right through the keeper's legs, and right. I was at the match, and you could have cut the tension with a knife. You know what I mean? It was really, and we've got a lot of players like that at Celtic, and we can't always rely on those moments. You know what I mean? We need to start killing teams off now. It's nitpicking a bit. Seeing you don't nitpick when things are going well, you're not going to learn from your mistakes, mate. And I think one thing for sure is Ange didn't address the defensive issues last season. I think he's no one to focus on defensive issues. But one thing for me is, I think if he sees Celtic on the firing all cylinders up front, I think he will be quick to address it. Maybe he's going to use this game time, and I heard Regan there mentioning summertime. I don't think we can wait till summertime. I think if we want to get a player in that's going to be part of your long-term future, we need to get him in January. I think a centre-back and a striker, I think it's priority for Celtic. For me it is, because I've said it a million times, I'll fall my arse if we go through this full season without having the 200 at one time. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't want to see a period of time where we've not got a striker. We've already let Ayeti go out on loan, so there's got to be scope to get another striker in there. You know what I mean? I think for me it's January.
Well, I mean, it shows you when you realise, like, obviously since Ange came in, obviously that was the same summer French Eddie left, and we've been a bit spoiled since 2016. In fact, to be fair to Griffiths, 2015-16 he scored 40 goals. So since 2015, we've had top strikers at Celtic that had that clinical edge, that could do it at all levels. You had Griffiths, then it was Dembele's reign, and then it was French Eddie. And now Kyogo and Giakoumakis, for all the qualities they have, I just feel maybe you're right, Mark, that up front is that area where you're going. See, for whatever reason, we might be biased towards Giakoumakis, and we might think he's not been given a fair crack of the whip. That's Angie's right to do that. He can do that if he so wishes. He can pick whoever he wants, and maybe he sees a lot more, as he's alluded to in interviews. He's, we know 1/10 or 1/100th of what he knows, seeing him on a daily basis, and that's fine if he doesn't think he deserves as much of a crack of the whip as what Kyogo gets. But that also means it's going to be difficult for another striker to get their chance if Ange keeps up that sort of mantra, unless they're of the ability we all deep down are searching for. But Regan, Matt wants to.
I do agree with you, Russell. I do agree with you, Russell.
2 seconds, because what I was going to put to you, Regan, was the thing is with January, it's notoriously, according to almost every manager under the sun, the hardest month to do recruitment. That being said, I think our January recruitment under Ange has been his best window.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I put the same point to Peter Grant last week on the radio, and Peter Grant said that the reason why Celtic don't buy a first striker is because they play in Scotland and you can't keep three strikers happy.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all.
He said to me, from speaking to Brendan, it was very difficult to keep Lee Griffiths, Edward and Dembele all happy at the same time.
But that's their problem. The thing is, Regan, do you not think see that season though, Regan? We watched Edward. If it hadn't been for that season of him being a wee bit on the fringes, do you think he would have still been as good a player when we signed him for £9 million? I don't. I think he learned a hell of a lot being in that sort of hot competition for a jersey, fighting for it. I think when Griffiths actually made appearances that season, I think it's been underestimated how well he did in those first 2 seasons under Rodgers, despite not being first pick. And of course, for Dembele's point of view, not that he ever showed it, I do think deep down it pushed him on a wee bit, knowing he's got these 2 guys, breathing down his neck for a jersey, Regan. I think it's a safe option if you're scared of having competition for jerseys, pal.
I totally agree with you. That was just what Peter said to me when I put the question to him.
He's fucking wrong.
That's probably
why he's been
because
sacked every place he's ever went to.
That's probably the attitude that Celtic have maybe got in the club, though. That the fact that they don't need that. If he's, if he's coming out and saying you can't keep two strikers happy, maybe that's the attitude of the club.
Yeah,
that's
not progressive. That's not progressive.
Yeah, I agree with that. No, I agree.
I think if you don't, like you mentioned that a couple of minutes ago, and I failed to respond to it, but that's the players' problems. I mean, like I'm not putting photographs up my wall players and then think we can't get. I mean, I was told that we can't get better than McGregor for talking sake, so there's no point trying. See, if that's your attitude, you're never going to get to the level Celtic should be at. You know what I mean? We need to. So see if we bring in a striker, that's Giakoumakis and Kyogo's problem. That's their issue. They need to keep above this guy, and that makes the level better to Celtic. It's 1-1 for the fans, 1-1 for the club. But what Angie's doing is, he would tell you that he's not got a first striker. He's saying, if you look at me, I'm rotating it. I don't believe that is the case. But there's a rotation or a departure just now. I think the World Cup kind of progressed that mindset in the club. But so there is room for a third striker. Because
of course there is.
even if it's a third striker who can play dual roles, like a striker who can almost play it wide. I mean, a Bada can play it wide and sort of be a striker as well. So I think there's definitely money available for a striker, and I think there's definitely room in that squad for a striker that I think would be quite naive to get into the rest of this campaign, or even get into next season at the very latest without addressing that situation, because we need somebody else in there. It's just a matter of time before we have an injury or two.
The only thing that
do you agree with Mark that Ange might be more reactive to the striker situation than he would be, say it was a centre half, the two centre halves slightly out of form? Do you think Ange is more inclined when it becomes to adding or improving the attacking options that he's got? He's maybe a wee bit quicker to react. That's just the style of manager it is. It's not a criticism. Would you think that might be the case?
I think it will be, because obviously we've got a 9-point gap and they want to put the foot down the second part of the season, especially Russell, because they know they can win their money back by especially Decually, which Rangers did for years. They know that if we can put our foot down and we can do well, then Celtic will win the league for one more time again.
Absolutely. I think as well, we're in a situation where it's all over the park. Competition's going to do it. I'm a broken record probably because I do that many pods, but the amount of padding signings we made, Mark, the amount of padding signings that we made was, when you look at the actual transfer window, you know, I'd listed the players on Twitter. Remember, I listed them all. I got absolute pelters for it. And you actually look back and you go, Haksabanovic was first team ready. Jens is first team ready, but he's not an upgrade on Starfelt. He's very much of Starfelt's level, right? Haksabanovic, I think, is someone who can compete for jersey, 100%, right? And I'm happy with that. Other than that, who's came in to take a first team jersey? Navday, right? Absolutely Navday, right? So what we're looking for in January, if it is going to be January and they say the planning's done, that's great. Is it going to improve this first team enough, though? Is it going to be that it's going to be guys coming in, Mark, that when they're playing teams that are going to be of a higher ability than Everton in the Champions League, let's be clear, that they're going to be able to take their chances. They're going to be able to dominate the ball the way Ange wants to, play that passing game, but also have, what would you call it, you know, that final killer instinct, do you know what I mean, that just elevates you from being a good team to a right good team. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what's missing right now.
I totally agree with you, mate. I think he's already put next season's team in place just now. I think that when McGregor comes back in, I think it'll be McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate, Haksabanovic on the right, Jota on the left, and a striker through the middle. So when we've been padding out the midfield, I feel like we've been kind of like almost trying too hard to find that missing piece that probably doesn't need filled. You know what I mean? Am I right in saying we've brought in 5 CDMs or 4 CDMs? Not one of them can displace Carl McGregor. Not one of them can get a game in front of Matt O'Reilly, who's basically a number 10, 4. And it does seem to me a bit like squad padding. I mean, I don't think any of the 4 do a very good job, to be honest with you. So it's not like they've come in and they've been excellent cover. It just seemed to be squad padding. So why no squad pad in the striking area? It seems to be we've got like three or four options right on the right hand side on the wing as well. We've got Haksabanovic, Jota can play there, Maeda can play there, Abada can play there, Forrest can play there, Haksabanovic can play there, and then you go, right, what about strikers wise? I mean, what happens if we start falling down the injuries? What can we do there? What's happened to the left hand side? I think that's been a bit neglected as well. You know, it's when Jota was out injured there. Jota's a very big player for Celtic, and I think Haksabanovic can play there. But see, when he was out injured, you were really panicking about what decisions we were going to make on the park, or who was going to be replacing him. And I think with the amount of players that we've been buying, as they put it, as padding, I mean, the same level of padding can be put in the left hand side, the midfield, and the wing and up front. The money's there, so why not build a big squad of players that's not going to be of the level of the first choice, but you're never going to get somebody who's competing with a Jota at our level. You know what I mean? We're not going to get that, but we're going to need to, I think, focus our attention away from certain parts of the midfield and start padding the areas of the park that we feel, that the fans feel, who they watch them week in, week out, that we need to do. And that, for me, that starts with the front 5, if you want to put it that way.
I think that's fair. I think Mark's absolutely spot on, Regan. I mean, see, at the end of the day, I like this for David Kelly as well. And he's saying, January's going to tell us everything we need to know. I was saying that in a text to one of my pals, but January will tell us whether the club subscribed to what Ange said at the AGM or whether they've not. Whether it's him, it was a warning shot by Ange because he fears the worst, or whether it is we are really in symmetry here, which I hope. I've got my doubts, and I think I'm perfectly entitled to have my doubts on that. There's a body of evidence there that Celtic do eventually just put a glass ceiling that doesn't exist on our aspirations. And Regan, David's saying, if we don't improve our starting 11 for 2 windows in a row, then we will never get better than what we are now. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I think that's where Mark makes a great point in that all these people that I've got Jota on the wall, Hagsabanovic t-shirts, and Postecoglou flags, like there's going to be a time where these guys are going to leave the club. It's just the way Celtic works. So we need to bring in players that when Celtic Park, when people go there and are crying that Jota's left, we need to be able to go, right, we've got this guy for Japan that's going to come in and do the exact same job that he did. Because that's the way that Celtic should work. Look at Ajax, look at Salzburg as well. Look at all these clubs that do it window in, window out. That's the way we need to be. And I think that's the thing that Andrew's trying to say. You can't just go, oh, well, we get rid of Edward and we bring in a Jay. That's not the way that we should work. We should be trying to go, right, we should have the best people in charge everywhere on the park. I think the biggest problem that the club is no mentioning either, we've probably got Peter Lawwell in charge of the club still. When now it's not as if Peter Lawwell can say to Ange, well, we've qualified for the last 16 for a while, mate. It says Peter Lawwell's been there, so they have not qualified for the last 16. So what experience is Peter Lawwell going to hand to Ange? So I'm just hopeful that Ange can get us as far in Europe as possible, Bam, and they can keep these players together. I want to ask you guys, see in terms of Juranovic, right? He's going to be sold in January. There's no doubt about that. But how much do you think he'll be put back into the squad? Obviously, we're probably going to sell him for about 10 million, 15 million. And I know that Celtic's Twitter would have you believe that he's worth about 90 million quid, but he's probably only 15, 20 million at top. So do you think we'll reinvest it, or do you think we'll bring in a £2 million ball and goalie?
Well, what's the situation is, Mark, and you've kind of touched on it already, is the accounts come out, they're there for everyone to see. We've got, I think it's a £13 million overdraft, and we've got £30 million cash surplus roughly in the bank. It looks likely, can't count your chickens and all that, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to have another 35 million windfall this summer by winning this league title and going straight into the group stages again. For me, the COVID thing was a watershed moment for the football club. See, before, we were told always what Celtic do is they make money, but they protect the future of the club. We are soundproofed for any potential disaster that can occur. Well, that rainy day, if you like, Mark, came. The club was jeopardised by the fact they had no supporters in there for 18 months. Things like that, a huge source of our revenue. We've discussed this on the channel before. How much of a percentage actually gate revenue and match day revenue is to Scottish clubs in comparison with the EPL, for example. So we got really hurt by that. Yeah, it's not that long ago. It's less than a year ago we played our last game by no fans at McDermott Park. That's still under a year ago. And yet here we are sitting with a cash surplus reportedly around £30 million. So if we can come out of a crisis like that, this financially strong, with more money coming in, at what point does the handbrake come off? At what point do you go, do you know what, the rainy day's been and gone and we were all okay? Let's now go out there and start making some sunshine. Let's do it, because I think we've got the right manager there. We've got an engagement from the fans in terms of season ticket lists that we could, from a business point of view, you could only dream of. We're going to, as I say, I've touched on, going to have our second access to guaranteed group stage Champions League football in a row, which is combined £70 million. We've got assets all over the football park. You know, we've got assets all across the team that are at a good age with sellable value of real money. There's no excuse if a position needs improved on or needs better for Celtic not to go out and do it. People shit in the bed about Celtic potentially spending £10 million, for example. It's what's holding the club back.
Mhm.
£10 million in 2022 is chump change. Don't spend it for £10 million sake, Mark. But based on everything I've just said there, when you look at it all, you're going, well, how much do you need to be sitting on just to
Mhm.
feel safe? Because I don't think we can have another rainy day like COVID in our
No.
lifetime that could jeopardise the club's bank balance as much. And yet here we are, sitting prettier than ever. So it's time now to get that invested in our first team and back a manager who backs Celtic, who believes in the potential this club's got. It's time for the money men to do the same.
I don't think you get any more rainy days or worst case scenarios than playing behind closed doors. That must be, when you talk about doomsdays, that's probably the ultimate doomsday scenario. So Celtic survived that. In fact, they had a £5 million payout. They were only one of the two clubs that had pandemic insurance. That's how prudent they were, you know what I mean? And so we've survived that as every other club did, but like in Scotland. So let's just forget about worst case scenario for the club, and we're not going to improve this team with £2 million players, £3 million players. That's not going to happen. But we as a club are not going to improve either by sticking by a model that's buy small, sell big. We need to at one point take the next step, and if that means buying in, going for a £5 million or £4 million player to the 8s and 9s. Now, I think Celtic are scared to create a trend amongst themselves. And when they start going into the £9-10 million market, that as soon as they want a player, they start to become a bit of a higher priced range. So all of a sudden, because we see it happen to Man City, if they want a youth player, all of a sudden they become £15 million. You know what I mean?
I get that.
And I think Celtic may be scared of that. Personally, I'm not scared of that. I think Celtic, I mean, there's not a player in your squad that answers improved, but what that also brings is, that brings the level of how much money we can get for them back. So
Exactly.
So we're not going to go out and say, right, okay, Juranovic is going to go for, I reckon he'll go closer to 10 than a day 15. I said that and I got laughed at in the summer. I think he will go for about 10 million.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to spend that to replace him, but do I think it's foolish to expect my club to spend 6, 7, even £8 million to try and replace him? No, I don't. I think that's where Celtic need to go to.
Progression.
And that's all of the part. If you're going to evolve, and it's not a small part of this, but you've got to kind of match the manager's ambitions. I mean, the guy's ambition was to get into Europe. He's already here. He's at Celtic. He saw the fancy lights. Knew he's settled in. Knew he wanted to know, right, he's kicking the tyres. He wanted to know, right, so where are we going together?
Yep.
Are we getting left behind? Now, I spoke about it a few times. I think Celtic had a chance to bury Rangers under O'Neill. We had the same chance under Stratton and with the same chance under Rodgers. We certainly did. And it always goes back to revisionism, where you say, if only we just bought that defender we needed, that other striker. And I've got this inherent fear that Celtic are going to make the same mistakes, boys. And January will be a wee bit of an acid test for the Celtic board, because don't forget, there's fears over the fan base that Rodwell's still pulling the strings. Now, if Nicholson's this visionary that we're led to believe he is in terms of a Celtic CEO, and he seems to be a progressive younger man. Now, the test comes in January when the World Cup's been ideally placed for Celtic. We'll get players in the shop window. We've also taken a chance to look at some players who are going to be playing the world stage, who we're maybe going to have a casting an eye over. Okay, the price value will fluctuate because of that, but we can't get into the Champions League next season, I'm sorry to say this, by buying £2 million players, because they're going to finish bottom again, Bhoycie, and look what happened to Rangers. Rangers got a good group, and look what happened to them. And we are, listen, just one thing, we are not beyond that. We are not at a level where we couldn't get fucked. We couldn't lose 30 goals like Rangers did. We are not at that level. We could embarrass ourselves unless we get into a sword fight with a sword rather than a fucking a squishy gun, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I mean, this is the thing. I don't want our points here to be lost in translation. I think Polymorphous, I'm glad you're on the bus. Good to have you on and all that. But I think that's a wee bit unfair. I don't remember any sort of lingo or rhetoric being used about people being binned. You know, I don't think that's the point. I don't want everyone to miss the point.
We're trying to speak about improving the players we've got.
Improving, always improving, mate. It's not about binning players out because they're quality. It's about always going, can you improve it? Have you got funds in place to do so? Have you got the ambition to do that? Are you always looking objectively at every position in the park, whether they're quality or not? Is there even better out there? It's not a clamour for anyone to be binned, and I don't like that sort of rhetoric because it's certainly not being used on the bus and, you know, with regards to any footballer in the team. And it's certainly not the point we're trying to get across is keep evolving. Now, this is the thing. Obviously, people can get hung up on the £10 million thing. What does £10 million get you? Well, what I can tell you is, Mark's talking about the £2 million things. This is a wee interesting observation. See the £2 million guys we used to be getting? They would be for leagues like, you know, Giacomakis an exception because he had a relegation release clause before folk get smart. It was the Dutch league. It'd be the Belgian league. It'd be the French league. Things like that. That's where we get our £2 million players from. Of late, it's been the Slovakian league, the Polish league, albeit the J League we've had a few hits, but we're looking at players in Iran. And certainly you can tell, to get this same bracket fee-wise, you're having to scour the world more and more. And there's a greater risk element attached to that, whether people want to admit that or not.
Oh, there is. I mean, the big thing you said there about binning, Russell, nobody's ever said that. I mean, if you run a successful business like a pub, a club, a restaurant, you want to keep evolving the restaurant, so you want to keep evolving the football club. You want to make it the best it can possibly can be. Nobody's saying that we should bin Jota to get a better player. All we're saying is that Celtic shouldn't be looking to sell Jota for 15 and getting a guy from Iran for 1.9 million. Like you always said, it took Celtic nearly, 10 years to get rid of the Chris Sutton transfer record. I mean, 9 million quid is peanuts. I mean, look at Nathan Patterson. Nathan Patterson went for 9 million quid to Everton. Now, Nathan Patterson only played 15 games for Rangers or whatever. And, you know.
Well, this is the thing. I think we're all in the trap, which I'm sure Celtic are delighted that the fans are in the trap of, is we've all got overinflated values of our own players and yet all put each other off even daring to spend that sort of money on the replacements. We'll shit the bed at the prospect of spending money that seems to be 8 figures or anything like that. Yet a player plays well for Celtic for 10, 15 games. Matt O'Reilly being a prime example. I think he's a brilliant player, by the way. But within 10 games of him at Celtic, he's 15 million, isn't he? Yeah,
do we focus on the money too much? But do we focus on the money? See in Scotland, do we focus on the money too much? See when we see a player that we go £6 million. No, I agree with you. You go to spend the money. I'm totally on board with that. I mean, but what I mean is we should be concerned ourselves with how much money it's cost us. If it's been too much, whether it's breaking the bank, we should be concentrating on the level of player we just purchased. We should be going, all right, but it's not a £9 million strike. Let's look at the level of player we're going to be getting for that. Never mind. I mean, nobody speaks about money more than the Scottish media when it comes to football, and it's overemphasised. You know what I mean? That if you stand still in football, you go backwards, and we can't afford to do that, mate. And that's a positive thing we're talking about. This isn't anything negative or try to shaft players or shift players out. We want the best, and I think there'll be a shock miss for Celtic. There'll be 1 and 2, player 1 and player 2. If you can't get 1, you get 2. But I want to hope, and I'm not sure yet, right? But I want to hope that level of player 1 and player 2 is higher than what we've seen before, and in terms of financially as well. Guys that have had, me and you spoke on the phone about this before. Like, see when you go for a £3 million player to a £6 million player, you're taking away that year transition period where they guys become 13 players and then evolve into a second season where they become hardened professionals. See when you got that extra couple of million, you're avoiding that season. You're fast tracking that guy into your system. Where they've done the hard yards. They've done the hard part. Now they're at that level, and we don't want to be starting again every summer. We want to get bringing in the players that can kick on and improve us. And I think the days of us signing 5 players in summertime and not one of them getting into the first starting 11 in the first game of the season, I want to see the days finished. I want to see improvements to our first 11 every season, if not every window.
Yep. I think it's not rocket science what we're talking about. Do you know what I mean?
No,
It's not rocket
it's not.
science. And I do think there's a case in point. When you look at the window there, it's just been, it was free transfers. It was, I think 3.75 million on Bernabei, for example. And you look at the guys that have came in, and Haksabanovic aside, have any improved the first team? No, they've not yet. There was a lot of players signed. And at the time was dressed up as a really positive, arguably the best ever transfer window it was being described as. And I think it's been proven that a lot of that was smoke and mirrors. And really there was a lot of boxes being ticked for fans, but the reality on the park is even Ange doesn't rate them as highly as maybe they looked like they were going to be on paper.
No.
But it's not just the importance of recruitment. There's a mindset thing that Ange is obviously working on. He's trying to shift, and that'll be his real obstacle. And I think, Mark, that's what we're getting clues of in this Sydney Cup, is that there is, for whatever reason, when you're playing a team of a wee bit of repute like in Everton, and it's EPL scouts and EPL coaching staff there, and the eyes from that sort of world on you, is there a mentality shift where that's what Ange's really got? He's got his work cut out on a wee bit, because these guys aren't obviously naturally, otherwise that's how they were available to come to us at these fees. They don't have that experience in the bank that you're talking about, so they need this year, 18 months bedded in period. Do you know what I mean? And I do feel that the biggest battle Postecoglou has got, whilst recruitment, we've just discussed at length, is so important. And almost every former manager you ever see to get interviewed says the most important thing is recruitment. And so we'll not take away from that. But I think that the next biggest challenge Ange's got is, how can I get these guys to just believe that next level, believe that next step? Now, not all of them, some will fall by the wayside. Ange's hinted at that. That's cool. But on the whole, it's the philosophy, it's the mindset, Mark. That's his next big challenge. Because I do think right now, it's been proven again this morning that when we're against, clubs of higher repute, and there might be more different eyes watching, for some reason that bottle maybe crashes a wee bit, for example, in front of goal, not in the way that it would domestically. I think that's his next big challenge is, how do we shift the group that we do have, no matter what level they're at? How do we shift them into believing we deserve to be at the top table, and we're going to take points at the top table? I think that's his next task.
Aye. And I think that comes with two ways. I think that comes with experience, but also comes with bringing a higher caliber player. I mean, if you're in a tunnel and you're lining up against, and you're looking across and you're seeing your Benzema's and all the rest of it, you get a bit more confidence in yourself when you're turning around and seeing a Chris Sutton and a Henrik Larsson standing behind you. You know what I mean? And I'm not suggesting Celtic will ever sign that level of player again, especially in Scotland, but it boosts the confidence in the players when they see that level of player is going up, and also it boosts their ability. I mean, week in, week out in training, the step up, and it must be. I don't know if Ange would be concerned as such that Celtic seem to get a wee bit like rabbits in the headlights. I think he'll see it as, okay, it's a learning period. They've had these 6 games. I think that's all he will afford them. I don't think he would accept maybe another campaign of 50 or 80 shots at goal and freedom on target, freedom going in the back of the net, one of which is on goal. We're going to have to improve on that. You know what I mean? We're going to have to improve the level of player. And it goes back to what we said earlier on. I mean, we all love Kyogo and all the rest of it, but I'm fed up putting that prefix on everything I say. We all love anybody that puts a Celtic strip on, but
true.
We're going to have to, we're going to have to improve on them. You know what I mean? And I mean, one of my favourite players just now is Big Joe Hart, and I don't want to get into the crap I read online about him can't save penalties. In fact, he saved one a day this morning. And it's a brilliant save. So people seem to forget that when he says can he not save a penalty, but if Celtic come in tomorrow, if Celtic come in January and they've managed to get somebody who's better, then I'd
So
be
be it.
saying, sorry, Joe. Just
So be it.
to keep digging away and try and get your place back, and that goes for Kyogo and Jackie Marcus, and I'm sorry to say this, that goes for Callum McGregor as well. See if you get a player in who's better than Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor can sit at the bench for all I'm concerned. My concern is Celtic, you know what I mean? And we need to. Now, this goes back to what we said earlier on as well. See if you're content with what you've got, you're never going to progress either. Do you think Real Madrid or Barcelona, or probably two bad examples, could they just fling money at the wall all the time?
But Alex Ferguson's Man United, for example, that's what I always go back to. You look at that and you go, yes, we're shopping in different supermarkets, Mark, right? But the principle is the same. He dominated his league, and year on year, see when you win the league, you bring in Dwight York, you know what I mean? The best striker from the other clubs in the league, you know, and you break your transfer.
Look at Rangers did, Bhoycie. See, he's on 9 in a row. Apart from the 2 seasons, I don't think they had to buy a player. They were just so far in front of Celtic, it was sickening. But maybe the last 2, they were Celtic got them pretty close. But see one thing, the younger ones won't know this, but the transfer window was open 24/7. So if Rangers put a team in Scotland and a player played good against them, Rangers bought them the following day. And they did that umpteen times. They did it with Theo Snelders, they did it with Johnson, who scored a hat-trick. They tried umpteen times to sign Ian Jess. They did it all over the place. Anytime Rangers played somebody who
Ian Jess,
he's a threat.
For the past.
And you never had to score at Ibrox. That was one of the best goals that's probably ever been scored at Ibrox.
I remember
it. Andreas Tom style, you know, it was a belter.
Yes.
And they did that. They knew probably some of these players weren't going to get in their first 11, but they were improving all the time, and they were actually weakening the opposition at the same time. You know what I mean? They were quite clever, Rangers, back then. They were flinging money at the wall as well. But we need to do that now, mate. I mean, I find it hard to imagine that Ange sits back with his whiskey and goes, "I did enough here. I'm fine." I think he's not like that. I think all the holes in the team. I mean, sometimes I'm at pains to point out the holes in the team. I feel like I was a day's moan, but there's holes over that team that need fixed, that need stitched up. And if I can see them, I can certainly see them. And I don't think. Look, I've mentioned before with Brendan Rodgers, we know why he left, right? Because he was getting his hands tied behind his back. But we went for a manager who the club felt lucky to have and replaced him by a man who felt lucky to be there. So that lessens your bargaining chip when you go to the board and ask for money. Now, this guy's got a buy-in. They know this is like, I've never seen, even on you, I have never seen a fan base buy into anything so much in my life, right? Never. I mean, they know they're going to have to back this man financially. How his contract's no signed yet, I don't fucking know. There must be more to it. But they're going to have to back this man, Bhoycie, and he'll not be happy signing £2 million players. I can assure you that. Yeah,
because the thing is, what Postecoglou's done so far, if we indulge in him a wee bit, he pulled out a magic wand last summer. That influx of players to a team that was in disarray, and it took 6-7 games, and I wet the bed a wee bit at the start. I can't deny it. Do you know what I mean? I just thought, this is a fucking nightmare.
Oh, snap.
What is going on here? But it worked. But that magic wand, that's the sort of thing that happens once in your cycle under a manager, right? And then you should be getting rewarded for that and the trust in you being increased. Now, this is the thing. Whilst people say, what do you want to spend all this money for? It doesn't guarantee anything. Not one signing in the world comes with a guarantee. Let's just get that abundantly clear first and foremost. What I would always flip it as well is the point of Celtic Football Club. That board is there to support the product on the park. The product on the park isn't there to support the bank balance. You have to get that in your head. And see if you don't want to spend that money because, there's a bit of a risk. Tell me what you want it for. What do you want to do with it? That's what I want to know. Where else would you spend it? Do you think the training ground, is that to be improved? Because it looks to me we made improvements in the summer again, by all accounts. So I don't know where it is people want this investment to go, but when there's money there, as sure as shit, I want to see it improved on the park, because that's the product that you're paying for as a customer. This is simple stuff we're talking about here, very simple. The point of the matter is, it's not spending for spending's sake, but it's recognising that in the last 15 years, Celtic have been at the top table minimal amount of times than what they should have been. If we want to consistently be there, then obviously what we've done, we have to learn from the mistakes of the last 15 years. It's not fucking difficult to understand that the reasons why we didn't qualify for Europe as many times as we should is quite clearly what we were doing to implement and supplement what was on the park wasn't enough to get us there. So if we want to be there regularly, something has to change. We have the tools to do so. Let's fucking do it. That's all we're saying. I don't think that's that difficult. We've got the body of evidence there, Mark. A team that had a free pass, let's say, for a decade of Champions League access. And I admit that the playoffs are a quandary. But did we ever really go into those playoffs tooling up a manager properly, Mark? I don't think so. I don't think so. So there's a lesson there straight away.
We will get... How many times did they get into a campaign? And it's not a slight one near beat on. But we're playing near beat on, a holding midfielder at centre-back. That happened to us, it felt like, every season. I mean, even Rodgers' first season, who was the young Irish boy that we played in the qualifiers at centre-back with Sviatchenko? You know what I mean? You go... And he still managed to get us through it. He dug us through it.
His first name is like spelled like Ewan, but Eoghan. O'Connell?
I was going to say O'Connell. It might be.
Someone will tell us in the comments. But that was
a cracking goal against Leicester.
Talking about magic wands again, though, Mark. You're talking about magic wands, and Brendan Rodgers is going, that'll be the last time that happens, by the way, lads. That's not fair.
And it happened again. And it's like, I mean, we've got lucky.
We were right.
Well done. We've got lucky. I think if this journey under Ange, and it sounds quite cheesy me saying that, but if this is a journey and I'm climbing a ladder, we're on the first rung. I still think we're on the first rung, you know what I mean? And I think he sees it that way. And we were dealt a wee bit of harsh lesson in the Champions League. I'm quite liking the Champions League campaign to like when Hearts come to Celtic Park. They might hammer you for a wee half an hour, but you get your composure and you just end up tucking these teams away. You know what I mean? And that's what happened to us almost every game. So we need to improve on that. You know what I mean? And that comes from the club. Now, one of my biggest things is the fact, I don't know if he's saying that.
He's just saying great memory, Mark. He didn't score a random belter once. I can't remember that goal, to be honest.
He scored a belter against Leicester. Kind of a size fit for 20 yards. Good goal, actually. Mario scored a belter that day. That was a beautiful goal he scored. But we're talking about the money in the bank. I mean, I must admit, like, I get a wee bit jealous and a wee bit frustrated when I see the youth systems in England and Italy and Spain, and they've all got their own wee stadium. I mean, we've got a B team who's playing in we're renting stadiums. Why have we not got a wee mini individual stadium? There was talk about a grandstand up at Barryfield for these teams, like for the girls' teams and the B team. I mean, is enough investment going into the first team, but is there any real investment other than box tent going into that youth setup? Now, we've sat in this show and we have said umpteen times, I don't think Ange fancies that we're set up. I don't think Ange thinks there's anything coming through that squad.
Yeah.
I know he took Vata and Lawal, but youth players, with a lot of players going out and probably getting extra rest, so we needed to take squad jersey fillers, you know what I mean? And I'm glad these guys got the experience, but I think your youth setup needs addressing. I think we need to make it a bit more professional. I mean, you look at them. It would just seem to be. I spoke about this on Thursday. It's like we're just scared to change and scared to innovate. Oh yeah, Scottish football, and it's almost like we're scared it doesn't work. So why spend the money? And it's like you can see it ripping out of every corner of Scottish football, and even the Celtic. We're scared to move with the time, or even create new waves and create new time. You know what I mean? We just don't want to do it. And
no, it's weird.
If you don't learn from your mistakes, is that not the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Now, am I right in saying here we've qualified for the Champions League 5 times in the last 12 years? Is that right?
5 out of 13, I think.
5 13. How many of these seasons have we went into in the summertime without a chance of qualifying.
And by the
Probably
way,
not
one of those 5 times being automatic qualification.
There
You
you
know
go
what I
then.
mean? So, like,
We've had a chance.
let's get it right.
We've had a chance at the jackpot every season, and instead of saying, right, let's get that defender in right now, while we can,
Yes.
the key is that 5% more chance of winning the big bucks. And see, if we don't win the big bucks, it's going to strengthen the team anyway. So it's win-win situation. We didn't. We hummed and hawed. We nearly lost. I mean, Stefan Skepovic was a horrendous signing, but we nearly lost that guy because Celtic doing what they always do. They're doing what they always do. We'll sign you on Tuesday. We'll sign you on Friday. How is it happening on Friday? Well, nothing. We've got a qualifier on Thursday. We'll let you know if we've got the money in the bank on Friday morning. Who's going to be a bit for that? How many players have we lost? And how many players have we lost that could have took us to another level by saying we'll talk to you after we qualify? No speculation.
True.
To get that accumulation.
True.
And this is a chance to get to that level. If we win the league this year, which I think we might, we've got that jackpot sitting there.
Again.
But there's no think we don't need to spend it to get, okay, we're there. Let's improve. So that, see, next year, when it's 8 Champions League games for the team that qualifies, and it's a £3 million jackpot for winning a match, let's build this properly. And it starts in January, in my opinion.
And I think Ange will have visions of all that as well. I think he'll be acutely aware of the Champions League setup changing and the fact that it actually works in our favour. The fact that leading up to this revamp of the Champions League, 2 group stage guarantees if you win just for winning the SPFL title. I mean, it's kind of there. Like, there is a pathway there for Celtic to grow now. It should be an exciting time, not one that gives people nerves of, I don't know if we can really improve on this. I don't know, fuck all that. We've got a potential access right now to revenue beyond what we've been making enough of. You know, you go back to the Rodgers 2 out of these 3 years, I think we turned over £100 million, you know, and I think, you know, that was record breaking at the time. How does it then go backwards? How does it go backwards for that? Because you didn't keep that path going. You didn't keep that path of travel. You didn't follow it. You know, when it was all there in front of you, the evidence was there, the money was there. Yes, expenditure went up during that time, Mark, and I'm well aware of that. But that is it evolving then. Your turnover's higher, your expenditure goes up. Again, basic spreadsheet stuff this is. This doesn't take, you know, a sit down with Alan Sugar to explain all this to you. Do you know what I mean? This is just, well, of course, as we're competing in the Premier competition in world football year on year, therefore, the expenditure goes up because we want to compete at that top table. But look at our revenue. You can't. Right now, like I'm saying about the transfers, we seem to want it. We seem to want our cake and eat it. We seem to want 15 million for Juranovic after he's been there for 6 months. Yet we shit the bed at, well, maybe just £2 or £3 million players are fine. Well, how come as soon as they put on a Celtic jersey, you inflate these fees, but the thought of bringing them to Celtic in the first place, you're not prepared at any point to have that gumption in your thoughts that fees could actually be realistically spent by Celtic, that you expect us to receive player upon player upon player. That's the thing I don't get. That is the tail wagging the dog, Mark. And you can't have it both ways. Evolution's got to work. They've got to be in tandem. Expenditure levels go up whilst revenue goes up. You know, players get sold for 20 million and then you spend a wee bit more on the replacement because you got more in for them. And I think what we've done as well in terms of the foundation, I go back to the Magic One thing with Postecoglou. Out of that influx of players he brought in, yeah, okay, Joe Hart's, James McCarthy, you ain't going to get a dink for, right? But he also did bring in guys, you know, that you're looking at going, fucking hell, you're going to get 5 times what you paid for them back. You know, you look at a Juranovic at £2.6 million. There's talk of 10 to 15 million. You're going to get something in that bracket. I know you're close to the 10, potentially, you know, 15 would be a lot, in my opinion, but that's fine. If they can inflate it to that, brilliant. Hatate, 1.6 million pounds. What are we looking at for him? O'Reilly,
he's gone for 20 million. He's gone for that. That boy's. I think Hatate, for me, I want him to have a few bad games because I don't want to lose him this summer because I feel like he's getting to a level now that it's getting really consistent, mate. And I don't want to see him going. I want to see him bury this guy, and I just hope that he maybe just levels out a wee bit because you see he keeps excelling the way he is. I think, you know, they could lose him pretty quick. I mean, and you mentioned it's so simple. It's like you don't need Alan Sugar. I mean, fucking Jerry Cinnamon can tell you. You know what I mean, that's how easy it is. And we're talking about.
I see what you did there. That's good fat.
That's a two-play word. And we're talking about like being scared. I mean, the expression pushing the boat out. I mean, if you just stood at the shore and never pushed that boat out, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to explore. You're not going to go and see what's over that horizon. So literally, you have got to push that boat out.
Yeah.
And see, standing with your comfort blanket and just sticking to these certain level of players, it isn't going to evolve this club. I mean, this club is a monster, but we're tying its horns behind its back by buying this level of players. You know what I mean? And I think January is going to tell us: is this the time? Is this finally the time that Celtic
are on board,
go to the next level? I'm going to be honest with you, mate. It's not going to surprise you when I say this. I'm not convinced, mate. I'm not convinced. I mean, I still think there's a wee tune getting played by Lowell. I really think that guy has got so much influence. And
is he back in January? Let's talk about that before we go.
Yes, he's back January, mate. You know he's back January. I think it's the worst kept secret.
Okay, let's talk about it then, because we're going to a hypothetical world here. Celtic announced in January that Peter Lawwell is announced as the chairman. We'll just, there's no football in the now, guys. So indulge us in a wee bit of an imaginary scenario, which we think might be the reality. Lawwell's announced in January as the new chairman of Celtic. He's been out the door for 18 months at this point. In that time, we've appointed Ange Postecoglou. We've seen a really exciting, young, vibrant team. We'll be on the cusp of our second Champions League group stage football in a row. How does it go down with the supporters who, for example, were protesting outside, sacked the board? Remember, it was a number of days being counted. Remember the big banners at the front? Mm-hmm. And it was like how many days I think they'd been asking for change at board level. Am I right in thinking that? So how fresh is all that going to be in the memory? How fresh is that? Or is it really Celtic playing a blinder and going, see, as long as we're winning in the park, none of these principals come into the fans thinking they'll just freaking let it happen. You'll walk in the back door and no one will say nothing. I'm very intrigued by this one. I'm not saying there won't be uproar. I'm not saying they'll just take it blindly. I don't know. I'm quite intrigued by it. And we will find out just how fickle football fans are, I suppose. Because when results are going well, it's very easy to take your eye off the board. Something I am not guilty of. And I think the reaction to that, I'll be very interested to get this in the comments and from yourself. If Peter Lawwell walks back in January, having not been announced at the AGM, which I think would then already stink a wee bit, and then he comes in, how are you guys going to react to it? How are you going to feel that the guy synonymous with the failing of the 10, the guy at the end of the day synonymous with that record people are calling in the comments embarrassing of Champions League qualifications? How are they going to feel with him walking back in while Celtic appear to be in the crest of a wave again? How are they going to feel that maybe every decision you now see from the Celtic transfer windows, whether whether it's him or not, you're going to be tainting it with him again? You're going to be back in that vibe again where if Celtic miss out on a transfer target, it might be nothing to do with Peter Lawwell, but you're going to have that in your psyche. You're back to those days. How's everyone going to react to all that, Mark? And how are you going to react to it first, big boy? And I'm waiting on some of the comments coming in.
Well, you mentioned it earlier on, the only park's supposed to feed the club or the board, not the other way about. I mean, that guy made decisions based on finances, not based on the merit of buying a player to improve the squad. He thought he wasn't financially prudent. He wouldn't go for it. He wouldn't want to make the club better. It was just a good bank balance was as good as a 3-0 win to him. And I think
that was a trophy.
And I think, and don't forget, look at what any cunt says, his bonus was based on the financial figures. So that's not the way a company should work, but that's the way his fucking bonus worked. But no a company the way Celtic is. I mean, but I don't think that. For me, it would go down like the Hindenburg. For me, it would, and just something. No amount of sleight of hand or smoke and mirrors would detract for that for me. No buying a £9 million player in the Celtic fan base going, oh look, there has been changed. Blobell's changed his tune. Look, he's ready. He's ready to go to the next level. I think it would just be an appeasement signing. I think it would just be a one-off to dress up the new appointment as, well, the old appointment. It would just be to dress him up as a changed man, a changed character, or somebody who's learned lessons. It would revert to type. He would revert to type the minute that Celtic started winning matches. And as I say, mate, no amount of smoke and mirrors is going to take my attention away. I don't care how many games we win. I look at the bigger picture quite a lot when it comes to Celtic. I try to kind of step back a wee bit. And him being at the club, I don't care what sound bites come out for Ange about meeting him and being so enthusiastic about the club. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. This man has held us back for so many years with millions in the bank, absolute millions.
Why can't he let it go?
We'll get more money in the bank, Bhoycie. We get more money in the bank in every other team in our league put together, just in the bank, without borrowing, right? And we argue our £500,000 to buy players under him. That is a new. I feel like Celtic went beyond it a wee bit with Wes Nicholson. I've got doubts over this man, but we went beyond it a wee bit. I feel like we would go the extra million. I feel this guy maybe sees. But I know, why can he not just go? Why can he not just go up the road and just wash his hands of Celtic, attend the odd supporters function or get hospitality tickets for nothing? Why is he going to still be there? The fans don't want you there. Nobody wants you there. Why he wants to go there? It could be ego. It could be Dermot Desmond.
This is what I'm trying to get at. What do you think from his point of view, Matt? What's the gain for him? Is this him trying to correct? Obviously, he thought he was going to leave on the back of 10 in a row, leave a legend, mate, you know what I mean, on a magic carpet into the sunset. And that never happened. And do you think now the good times seem to be back at Celtic, the feel-good vibes there? He wants to go back in and be a part of that. Is it an ego thing? I don't think from a business point of view, it is a progressive appointment bringing in someone that brought a lot of unhappiness to fans towards the end. He did a lot of good, by the way. See his record overall. Certain aspects, he did very well. But Monty was touching about it. If you don't qualify for the Champions League, that should be one of his remits. You shouldn't get your bonus. Yet his bonus wasn't based on performance-related achievements by Celtic. They were based on spreadsheet achievements. And that all affected the performance. At one point in the UK, he made, I think 1 year his record wage was £3.2 million.
Paid more than the Champions League winners, fucking director and CEO. And I mean, that's mind-boggling. A country where there's players in our top division earning £800 a week. We've got the highest paid fucking CEO in Britain, the Champions League winners. You know what I mean? And you go,
it's bizarre.
And to be honest with you, I've actually got a wee bit of grit in my teeth when people mention how well I did. Now, we signed a contract in 2005 with Nike for 25 point something million pounds, right? We signed a deal 16 or 15 years later for less than £5 million more under the same man. Now, inflation alone.
Yeah, that's true, mate.
You know what I mean?
So why is that went down? Because we didn't qualify for the Champions League, so we got that exposure. It all comes back to it.
See, anybody thinks anything to me about Lawwell, I think we had so much success in spite of Peter Lawwell. Not because of Peter Lawwell, in spite of him holding managers back. We lost, O'Neill's your man, I love Rodgers. We've lost the best manager we've had, in my opinion, in my lifetime, because Peter Lawwell didn't back him, so much so that he was picking players that were around the club, like Toljan and things like that. They were bought by somebody else. Malumbu pissed him off that much that the guy left the club. I've no doubt in my mind the guy left to go to a bigger platform and earn 5 times the money. Of course, that's always going to be a question, but the question was already answered when he knew his board money backing him. As soon as he was asked the question, he had doubts in his mind, but he was going. You know what I mean? And the guy was a dark cloud over Celtic for a couple of years there, and it's a very long time the Celtic fans were trying to get rid of him. And when he left, it was like I was so relieved. So see the thought of that guy coming back under any capacity just gives me the fear, and I think the club will try and do it through the back door. We all know.
Well, let's look at what Celtic have done, Mark, in the meantime, since he left. They decided, they waited till, I would imagine fan media access was something Celtic were probably building towards doing. Obviously, with lockdown, they couldn't get them in the comfy seats, but they could have done it via Zoom and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a couple of points on it. Firstly, they didn't want to do it because the anger towards Lowell was so much that it could turn into a negative experience, having the fan media there, because real questions would have been asked of them. Secondly, not because he was the right manager in there, but Neil Lennon would have torn them a new arsehole, right? And these young lads would have absolutely shat the bed, right? And it would have been toxic, right? It would have been toxic. But in that 18 months now, there has been this new access, this new wave, pitch side on title day. There's been, fan media pressers and things like that. And we get to ask the manager how he's so good and all this sort of thing. And now Lowell comes in. Are the real questions that these same supporters would have been, they'd had red banners across their profile picture of Neil Lennon and Lowell out as their bio. Are they really, though, going to be as challenging this time around, now that they've been given this sort of access and this sort of backstage pass, if you like, to Celtic and all things Celtic, and it really benefits a lot of these guys, of course it does. And it makes them weak at the knees because they're young, they're impressionable. I don't blame them for that, by the way. We've all been young and, thought, fucking hell, I'm getting to interview the Celtic manager or whatever. But once Lowell's now back in there, you've got them on toast. Because these guys that would have asked these real questions 18 months ago now don't want to jeopardise their comfy positions. I could be wrong. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll go in there and they'll say, why is he back? I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
They'll say, Peter, do you remember that flag I made up with the big red cross on it? I was only kidding you on, big man. Like another biscuit. I mean, fuck off. I mean, there's no way. I mean, listen, see the same ones who were...
So is it quite cleverly timed, is the point I'm making, though, Mark?
Of course.
By coming back. Get all that sorted, get them all cushy, and then when you come back, you're kind of invincible.
It's like a sabbatical, and don't forget, this is the same man. This is something that people forget. This is the same man. So him leaving Celtic was perpetrated, or at least accelerated by his car going on fire and then unfortunately his house. That's the same man who let the myth hit the papers that it was an angry Celtic fan when the target was his closest neighbour who owned nightclubs and had some dodgy business partners who we'll not get into for legal reasons. But that was a mistake by very rough individuals. Nothing to do with Celtic. But he sat back and let the narrative be put across the media that Celtic was some way connected with this, and it was an attack on him as an individual due to the hatred of him by the fan base. The guy, the same cunt who fucking wanted Bernard Higgins in charge, a security, a guy who put so much hardship, people's mental health. I mean, people moving cities to get away from him, and the police were chapping their doors and saying, just to let your boyfriend know we know where he is, and going to people's work, knowing fine well that it's hampering their career by doing things like that. The guy made so many horrible decisions. I mean, the way he spoke about the fan base sometimes when he was clearly shaking his head in disgust at some of the actions of your support. Keep that in-house. Don't give the papers anything to talk about. Don't publicise that you're disgusted by certain sections of the support. You know what I mean? Don't forget, I think Celtic were given fan access. I mean, see under Lennon's 2 seasons ago, there was I think it might have been the Cynic were getting in for a very long time, and they cut their access because Neil Lennon had a wee bit of a bad press conference, and he got asked a question off one of these guys, and he gave him a very bad answer. It was really dry with the guy, and their access get cut.
Yep.
They made access for the rest of the season. That's probably a Lowell decision as well. So these people that are getting access, and good luck to them. And I'm glad, because a lot of them produce very good content. Know them all. Some are just wee arse lickers, to quite honest with you. I could name them, and I would name them. I've not got any problem with naming the guys, but I'll not do it. In fact, I might have actually told one of them before, but I'll know that. You know what I mean? Nah. For me, Bhoycie, it would be a very regressive thing for this club today to bring him in. I mean, we'd be as well letting Sunday Blether in. You know what I mean? And letting him control our contracts. You know what I mean? I just, your time's been, your time's gone. We don't want to see you again. We want you to fuck off with your millions and millions that you earn
Made
through
off the club, aye.
And then every time somebody talks about him, it's like he could have went to Arsenal. But to be honest with you, see him earning 3 million, earning less money because Celtic were giving more money. See earning that money for 2 seasons, then Arsenal get shot at you. He's well stay at Celtic Park for 15 seasons and get the same money guaranteed.
And having complete control.
Complete control. That was an autonomy he had.
Yes, that's the word. That is the word.
He was that in control, Bhoycie, that even when Celtic were like had workies in and all this, there were stories about him like watching the work going on and everything. That's how nitty gritty he was. That's how much of a control freak that guy was. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, Celtic Park, just quickly, is a beautiful stadium. I can assure you it's not a modern stadium. There's so many things that need upgraded in that stadium. It has to get with the times, right? Celtic need to get with the 21st century.
Yep.
They've got to engage with the youth, as I spoke about on Thursday. Things like that don't happen under a Lawwell. Lawwell doesn't look at the small things. He's very interested in boosting the short-term financial figures rather than the long-term goals of the club and the long-term structure. You know what I mean? That stupid, ridiculous idea about pretending to the fans that you're going to build a museum and a hotel. I mean, that just fluff stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same fucking time of the year that we were arguing over like hundreds of thousands of pounds to sign players. Nah, there's no for me, mate. This guy is just a dark cloud of the club, and finally they get rid of him, and then to bring him back, it'd be a kick in the balls for me and you and everybody else who campaigned so hard to get him out. Yeah. You remember the sharp throwing incident, Bhoycie? No, the aggression at that night was a bad look for the club, right? See, every guy and woman who went out that night in the pissing rain and up to that stadium, these are the guys that deserve credit for no sitting on their arse. They went up there and they demanded change. Yeah. And they demanded again. And I up myself with a flag a couple of days later, put it up, I think they must have ripped it down. But we demanded change. We demanded change. And these are the same guys in the mid-90s and the early 90s when we were trying to get rid of the board. The same guys were getting their pamphlets took off and flung in the puddle and ignored for being troublemakers and agitators. No, these guys are... I think that, in fact, the Celtic Football Club caused the aggression that night by putting up the metal gates. The post already said that it was Celtic himself who asked for the metal gates to be put up. You didn't have to protect the players or protect any individuals. It was a thing you see week in, week out.
Mate. It's deflection. Yeah. It's turning it into, this is a you guys problem.
Well, what happened with John Barnes, Bhoycie? We went at the stadium and said, get this guy out of here. What happened with Mowbray? Going back to Celtic Park in the pissing rain and said, get these guys out of here. It happens at every club all the world. Enough's enough, right? There was no match, there was no football grunt at that time because of COVID that we could unleash our anger. This just kept me ahead that night. And he sat looking out his window, looking down at the Celtic fans, which is quite symbolic of how he feels about the club's fans, I think.
Mark, you raised some good points. We will leave it on that note, but I'm sure over December we are going to dip our toes into that ongoing potential story a wee bit more. We didn't even talk about 2012 and his role and all that stuff, you know. So I mean, there's so many different things we could go down, and I'm sure we could talk about it all day. Just to say, I think in the comments it was pretty unanimous in agreement with you, pal, as well. So I'm firmly on your boat. I don't see the benefits to it, but it's Sunday. I want you all to have a good weekend, not a depressed one. So we will move on from that, Mark. It's been brilliant having you on the Blether. A big shout out to Regan Stevenson as well. Have a great Sunday. And what is it to say again? You know, keep the faith, hail, and all that.
One of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.